Alright, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another For Honor video. So, today I thought we'd talk about what For Honor is like at the moment, what current state it's in, where the characters are in their roles, and all that sort of stuff. And I think I'm going to break it down into about 3 parts to make it easier. First one being which characters are in which roles, and what that means as a whole. So, to start off, I'm going to say the numbers of, how many characters are in each class. So you've got your Assassins, your Hybrids, your Vanguards, and your Heavies. Those are the 4 classes. And currently, we have 8 Assassins, 6 Hybrids, 5 Vanguards, and only 3 Heavies. So you can see the sort of problems this may be causing. So obviously, a couple things will stand out there, like 8 Assassins sounds a bit ridiculous, but because you really should only have, we should only have 5, basically, but the problem is a couple of classes actually take the Assassin role, because if we go, well, I'll go through it now. So you've got the PK and the Gladiator, they're Assassins, no denying that. Orochi, Shinobi, yep, Assassins. Berserker, and Shaman, Assassins. Then you've got Nuxia, which is an Assassin, and also Shaolin, which is the weird one, because he's got a Reflex Guard, and he's still considered a Hybrid, but I think because he's a Reflex Guard, because of how he plays, he should be more classed than an Assassin. So that leaves us with 8 of them. Getting on to the Hybrids, the only extra one I can add to that, I'd say, would be the Conqueror, because I'm pretty sure I won't be the only one in saying that Conqueror isn't a Heavy, right? He says he is, but he's the furthest thing from a Heavy in the game, pretty much. He plays more like a hybrid between an Assassin and a Vanguard. Like Warden and, well, I wouldn't say PK, but kind of like PK. It's a weird combo, but that's where he ends up. So you've got you got Conqueror as the first hybrid, Centurion, Nobushi, Aramusha, Highlander, and Valkyrie, and that's it, because there are no hybrids in the Wulin faction, only Assassins. Then for the Vanguards, we've only got 5 of those, so getting into smaller numbers, you've got the Warden, the Kensei, the trying to remember. Raider, yes, Raider. The Tiandi, and I put JJ into this class because he's not really a hybrid and he's not really a heavy. I think his best classification is probably that of a Vanguard. It seems to, I mean, tell me what you guys think, but I feel like JJ would fit more in the role of Vanguard than heavy, just from the way he plays. Like, I mean, obviously he looks like a chunky chap, but in reality, he plays nothing like a chunky chap. He flies across the map with unblockables. It's weird. And then we finally get onto our 3 heavies, one of which isn't even classed as a heavy. And these 3 characters are also considered some of the worst in the game, except for one if you play him a certain way. So you've got Lorbro, which is the only true heavy for the Knights at the moment. Conqueror obviously doesn't count. We've got Shigoki for the Samurai. Again, another one that is completely shit. And then you've got Warlord for the Vikings, and he's the only other true heavy, and that's even debatable, because if you play him unlocked, i.e. not like a heavy at all, he's actually good. So whenever you play a character like a heavy, they're bad, basically, is the rule of thumb, and I don't think that's a good way of going about it. I remember the old days where you used to play conq as a heavy, before his rework, and that was so much fun. But yeah, that sort of playstyle doesn't really work nowadays. I mean, if you play like that, you're not going to have a good time against a Warden or a Conqueror or anything like that. So yeah, we're seeing a clear bias towards Assassins and Hybrids, right? They're the majority class in the game. And, even some of the Hybrids are part Assassin, so you could argue there are even more Assassins, but yeah, basically the rule of thumb is the state of the game at the moment is overwhelmingly offensive. Like, the majority of characters are entirely offensive, fast, characters, right? And that's you know, well, that's how the devs decided to do it. But what I think that means, and what I think that means the game needs at the moment, is a lot more heavies, more than anything else, because obviously they're the minority class. I'd be fine with one of the 4 new heroes being a Vanguard, because that would sort of even out the numbers a bit, because then you'd have 6 heavies and 6 Vanguards, and everything would be a bit more evened out. Which, actually, that's a good point. I think the Wulin one might actually be a Vanguard instead of a heavy, but we know we're confirmed that Vortiger is a heavy, which is Vortiger is a heavy, which is quite nice. Knowing that, the one thing I'm really, really, really worried about is his playstyle. I love the fact that he's a heavy. I think that's exactly what the game needs, a lot more heavies. But the problem we have at the moment is we're in an offensive meta, more or less. So we started off in the start of the start of the game, and we started in the turtle meta, right? And that was a serious problem because, you know, everyone would turtle up, and, you know, that was just the way to fight, right? Then Ubisoft nerfed that sort of play style into the ground, which is, you know, it was a serious problem. The one problem they have now, though, is one of the ways they got around, the turtle meta was by releasing new characters and reworking characters into offensive monsters, right? So Conqueror used to be one of the most defensive, turtley characters in the entire game, and has now become one of the probably top 2 best offensive classes in the game. Like, there isn't really much that can compete with his shield bash, honestly. And yeah, so he's just a bash spammer. In fact, all of these top tier characters are all massively offense based, right? And that's where the bias is going. We're going too far in the other direction, into the offensive meta, right? And that just, you know, that encourages a lot of really spamming safe moves and things like that, because as a Conqueror or a Highlander or anything like that, you can spam all the unblockables you want and you'll be fine. Especially as Warden, your whole game plan as Warden is to just unblockable, feint, unblockable, feint, unblockable, feint, and occasionally zone, and that's all you need to win. And that's sort of I think that's, I don't know, it may not be the same for everyone, but I think that's a bit of a problem, and I think something needs to be done to fix that. If you look at the types of, you know, the way certain characters play, there's obviously offense and defense, and I think currently we only have probably 3 or 4 characters that are dedicated to defense, and 3 of whom, or 2 of whom, are really shit at it, right? So, and that means that every other cast member, so only 4 at most, are, you know, considered to be defensive characters. Every other one is considered offensive. And if we look at the ones that actually are defensive, so that would be probably your Lorbro, he's a defensive character, turtles more than anyone else. Shigoki, same level, probably, I don't know, maybe turtles more. He's the same sort of level. Warlord, again, he's that weird one because he can switch to his unlocked playstyle, which is completely different from any heavy, which sort of negates that sort of problem. And then you've got Nobushi, which is probably the only good defensive character in the entire game. In fact, yeah, I could safely say she is the only good defensive character in the entire game. And on top of that, she's actually fun to play, and it doesn't feel like a slog to fight against her. You know, it's a weird sort of balance. So the problem that these defensive characters have, I say that like there's a lot of them, the problem that these 2 defensive characters have, I'll just say Lorbro and Shigoki are the, you know, poorly designed defensive characters at the moment. Yeah, the problem they have is absolutely no openers, and their defense is still really poorly designed, despite that being their main thing. So Lorbro doesn't have any way at all to open up character. He's got a very weak offense, right? Shigoki, exact same problem. No way at all to open up a character, so it's entirely based around reacting, and you never get the chance to make your opponent do something you want them to do. Nobushi, on the other hand, she's got the best defensive mechanic in the game, which is Hidden Stance, and that is really good, because what that does is it means she punishes all the overly aggressive playstyles, so she completely negates Warden, Highlander, Conqueror, all their mix-ups, they just get completely negated, right? And she can punish them for doing it. And I think that's a good sort of character to have. Something that can deal, as the defensive characters are the minority, it's good to have something that can deal with all of the offense to balance it out. And at the moment, we only have one, which is Nobushi. And, she's got a weak offense to deal with to balance out the godlike defensive ability. But even then, it's still quite, I'd probably say a bit too weak as offenses go. She's got a good, she's got the mix-up where she goes into hidden stance, does the heavy, and even if you block it, the kick's guaranteed into stab. She's got some quick lights, some good dodge attacks, so she's all right. I'd say she's probably mid-tier, which is a fair place to be. But now getting on to what I think Vortish should be, I think he needs to be a defensive hero. One of the four, at least, need to be a defensive hero to help balance out this ridiculous level of offense we've got. I don't want another Conqueror, right? Which is what people are afraid Vortish will turn into. Just another character that spams bashes over and over and over again. And I want him to be nothing like... I think that would be a stupid decision for Ubisoft. He needs to have a little bit of offense. Yes, he should have an unblockable punch or something that just gets your opponent to actually move and do something, so they can't just wait for you to... It doesn't become a staring contest, basically. So every good defensive hero needs some kind of offensive punch move or just something like that gets your opponent to react. But in return for having a weaker offense, he needs to have a really good defense, which I think is possible because it says he's a heavy and he's got a giant kite shield, which could mean that he's got some of the best counters and that sort of thing in the game. And I really want a character that's got really good counters, right? So he gets massive damage off parries, or it's really easy for him to counter attacks, or things like that. Anything along those lines, I think would be good, and I think that's what he should have. The way Ubi should go around making a character like this, or at least the way I'd like them to make him, would probably be, if we think about it in terms of tiers, give him an S-tier defensive capability, right? Make him the same level as Nobushi or higher. But to balance it out, give him like a B-tier offense, so more on par with Valkyrie. That way, he can... he still has a tool to open people up. I'm not saying, give him Valkyrie's unblockables or anything like that. Just the same sort of level as, B-tier, which I'd say Valkyrie is in. Give him that kind of offense. That way, he can open people up. They can't just sit there and stare at him like you do against a Lawbro or a Shigoki. They have to actually react, which makes them, obviously attack you, which means they're open to counters, which is what your amazing defense is for. And that sort of combination of the two tiers of defense and offense should balance him out in give him somewhere along the lines of A tier, maybe S tier depending on who he counters, which I think a character that can counter unblockables will definitely deal with Conqueror and Warden and characters that rely on massive offense, right? It would make them think more, playstyles have to change and adapt, and I think that it'd be a good thing. It stops it all from being, right, if I bash first, I win, or, I just don't like that sort of style. When it's Conqueror v Conqueror, it's basically just who can bash the most and who can bait out bashes the best. You only use one move in the entire fight when you're fighting another Conqueror as Conqueror, and it's shit. And as a Warden, the only moves you really use are Guard Break, Shoulder Bash, and Zone. That's it. That's your lot, basically. And, I just want to move us away from that sort of play style, and, defense would do that. Now, I'm not really an expert when it comes to defensive heroes. I've only stuck with... I stuck with Conqueror when he was a defensive character, and I stuck with him all the way through that, but that was ages and ages ago. So I needed to ask someone who was actually good at defensive heroes. So I asked the only, good Nobushi main I actually knew, which is Luli. So I asked his opinions, and, got an interesting answer that I think is probably a good way of designing a character like this to make him... give him options for defense, which he should have the most of, but also give him something to open people up to stop it from being another staring contest like you'd expect with a defensive character at the moment. So Luli, you're probably one of the best Nobushi mains I know in For Honor, played her since the beta, played the absolute shit out of her, got her up to X60, all that good stuff. So when it comes to defensive heroes, which, you know, Nobushi is the only good one, you know your shit. Which is why I thought of asking you about if there was to be another new defensive hero, or I'll reword, if Vortiger, who is the most likely character to be defensive, so, you know, the only other good defensive hero in the game, how would you like a character like that to be designed? You know, think he's got the shield, he's got the sword. What kind of defense would you give him that would obviously make that his main thing, but what kind of offense do you reckon you could give him that would give him a chance, you know, open people up better than Nobushi can, but still with a reliable defense that's on that level or better?
I'd like to see an all-guard mechanic like conq that has superior block, but this can also deal with unblockables like Nobushi can. In this stance, he should have some hyper armor like Shigoki, just to deal with the bashes, as well as superior block that deals with unblockable attacks. From this, if his shield gets hit, even with the unblockable attacks, he should get some kind of counter like conq's flail uppercut, but obviously different. Also from this stance, he should have fast light and be able to heavy from it to have the non-mix-up mix-up. And to balance this out, I think it should be guard break vulnerable, so then people can bait you out if you use it too much.
Yeah, I can see that working. Yeah, I like the, especially the idea of, you know, having hyper armor while you're in this, you know, superior block stance or whatever it is, because, you know, that's a guaranteed way to deal with unblockables. And if, say, I can imagine it working because if a Conqueror was to bash you, it would be another mix-up, because if he throws the light while you're blocking, you know, you could get the counter hit, like, you know, you said, like the flail uppercut thing. And, yeah, so it's just, if he bashes you, does he follow through, or does he stop, does he not try and attack you just out of fear? And, you know, I like that idea. Okay, so the defensive side is, you know, that makes a lot of sense, especially, well, I like the, you know, fast lights from the stance is better than an unblockable from the stance, I think, because another unblockable would probably push him into the more offensive side, but, you know, just having the option to go into this all-guard thing, and, you know, you could bait out a lot of guard break attempts, so, you know, your opponent goes for the attack, you immediately go into the all-block to try and counter it. They know you're going to do that, so they try and guard break you, and then you just go into all block and immediately hit them out of it. You know, lot of good ideas. But what sort of idea would you have for something, you know, some offense he could use that would be good, but, you know, not ridiculously broken?
In terms of offense, I think he should have a bash similar to Kentei's Pummel Strike, so it's not ridiculously over the top like conq's bash, but it's still viable. As well as this, he should have an unblockable chain heavy finisher. So then, you know, he just has more options. Although his offense could be a Kensei copy and paste, I would find it more fun to play primarily defensive hero, but still with viable and fun offensive tools.
Well, thank you, Luli. So yeah, a lot of good ideas being thrown around, especially, you know, throughout the community and, well, here as well. And yeah, so just a lot of interesting stuff to think about. And, well, yeah, you guys let me know what you think of, you know, what would be a good but balanced offensive tool, you know, if offense is going to be a second thing, and what would be a really good but, you know, reasonable defensive tool he could use if, well, which most likely he's going to be all about defensible. Hopefully, fingers crossed. Ooh, and slight addendum. I'm really glad I actually waited a couple of days to finish recording this, but yeah. So the new information that was released, you know, the Vortiger leaks, you know, my previous video was all about covering that. But yeah, from that, we know that Vortiger is going to be mainly defensive, and his character description are counter hitter and protector. So I have no idea what protector means. Counter hitter is very obvious. That's like Lawbro, but hopefully a lot better. Protector, I'm picturing maybe a JJ feats vibe. So all his feats are all about, or at least some of his feats are all about healing the team and buffing their damage and stuff like that. 2 of them are confirmed. He's got the health regeneration feat, and he's got either tough as nails or whatever the feat that Warden has that lets him heal himself. I can't remember the name for the life of me, but yeah, so a lot of good stuff coming. Looking like he's probably going to be a defensive hero, but obviously same question still remains. How is he going to be a defensive hero, and what would be his offense to you know, at least give him a fighting chance. So that's a question I'll give to you guys, because I'm curious myself. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll be trying to get more, whenever I have questions about specific things like this, I'll try and get other experts in, because I'm not a master at this game, but yeah, I like getting people in. But yeah, thanks to Luli for doing that. Also, I'll link him in the description if you're curious. And yeah, I'll see you in the next vid. Really looking forward to the Vortiger reveal. Alright, see you in the next one. Bye.